What is up, ladies and gents? This is George Bean, and today is my review for the 2011 film The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which was directed by David Fincher of Seven and Zodiac fame, written by Steven Zaillian, and starring Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, and is an American adaptation based on a Swedish novel of the same name by Stieg Larsson. Upon its release on the 20th of December of 2011, the film had received favorable reviews by critics and even fans of both the original book and the 2009 Swedish film, with many praising it for its bleak tone and lauding Craig and Mara's acting performances. And in terms of box office, with a production budget of $90 million, the film had grossed over $232 million worldwide, making it a moderate success at the box office. The plot, the story, set in Sweden, follows journalist Mikael Blomkvist, who, after having lost a libel case against an allegedly corrupt businessman, is assigned by business magnate Henrik Wenger to investigate the disappearance and assumed murder of Henrik's grandniece, Harriet Wenger, from 40 years ago in 1966. But when he discovers evidence that Harriet's disappearance may be linked to a possible serial killer in the 1940s through 60s, Mikael teams up with computer hacker and rape survivor Lisbeth Salander to help him solve the case and uncover the identity of the serial killer, and hopefully figure out what had happened to Harriet Wenger after 40 years of being missing. As I have mentioned, this film is actually an American adaptation of a 2005 book by Swedish author and journalist Stieg Larsson, which was also the first in a novel trilogy referred to as the Millennium series, about Lisbeth Salander and Mikael Blomkvist working together to solve big complex crimes in Sweden. In inspiration for his book series, Larsson had claimed of an incident that had occurred when he was 15, where he had witnessed 3 men gang rape an acquaintance of his named Lisbeth. Days later, having been racked with guilt for having done nothing to help her, he had went up to her and had begged her forgiveness, to which she had refused to grant to him. According to him, this incident had haunted him for years afterwards, and had in part inspired him to create a character named Lisbeth, who is also a rape survivor. It had also been speculated that the 1984 murder of Katrine da Costa was also an inspiration when he wrote the book. Now to mention, Katrine da Costa was a Swedish prostitute who had been found dead, mainly dismembered, and parts of her body were found in plastic bags 1 kilometer apart from each other on July 18th and August 8th in the year 1984. The murder case remains unsolved despite 2 certain suspects having been tried and acquitted as a result of mistrials and the statute of limitations having run out. This book is what had introduced the world to the genre known as Nordic noir, or Scandinavian noir, of which followed similar books and movies of such type, the latest notable one having been the 2017 thriller film The Snowman, starring Michael Fassbender, which was based on a Norwegian noir book of the same name by UNESCO. One thing I'd also need to mention is that even though the original Millennium books had become a trilogy, its creator, Stieg Larsson, had originally intended for there to be a series of 10 novels, but he had died of a heart attack in 2004 before he could ever finish his planned 10 novels. So yeah, when he died, whatever plans he had for his 10-novel Millennium franchise had also died with him. But despite this, pastiches featuring Lisbeth Salander have been published, starting in 2015 with The Girl in the Spider's Web by David Lagercrantz, who had been hired to continue Larson's book series. Now, for me, I had never had the chance to see this in the cinema, nor had I ever heard of what it was about, nor its Swedish source materials. But once I had finally looked more into it on the internet for the next couple years, it had finally caught my attention and had intrigued me, so I had decided to buy it on DVD, and I will say, I had absolutely enjoyed it upon my first viewing. I loved it mainly for its murder mystery type storyline concerning the 40-year-old disappearance of a young girl and the supposed connection to an unsolved serial killer. That was something that had really caught my attention. I did not expect to like this movie a lot. And not only that, but I had also loved the cinematography in it. The way Fincher shoots all of his movies is very spot on. I love that he shoots them on a tripod and not to use shaky cam. He only uses shaky cam only when it involves scenes such as running. It is he only uses it if it is very minorly. But aside from that, about like 95% of his films is shot on a tripod, and I am thankful of him to do that. I'm tired of shaky cam, and it's surprising considering the fact that he had started off his directing career as a music video director. It's like a stark contrast to Michael Bay, who had started off as a music video director and yet shoots the Transformers movies like a music video. But unlike Bay, Fincher shoots like a proper director, and I congratulate him for doing that. I think I may have said the same thing when I had reviewed his other film Zodiac, of which is possibly my all-time favorite Fincher film ever. I have done a review for this film before, and if you haven't seen the review for this film, please go watch this review. And to say, I do also love the music score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It was absolutely hypnotic and mesmerizing to listen to throughout the film, especially the Hidden in the Snow piece, that it's during when Christopher Plummer explains to Daniel Craig the flashback of what happened when Harriet had disappeared in 1966. It's a beautiful music piece to listen to, even alone on a soundtrack. And so, I am very much glad when they had reunited with Fincher on his next film, that being the 2014 film Gone Girl, of which I am also a fan of. But as a side note, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was actually their second collaboration with Fincher, their first being on the 2010 biodrama film The Social Network, of which they had gained mass recognition for their score on this film here. And also on the final note, Trent Reznor was once the founding member of the 1990s industrial rock band 9 Inch Nails, so that was I believe that is a nice little trivia note for y'all to know about. For the cast, Daniel Craig does a pretty good job in this film as Mikael Blomkvist. Please forgive me if I pronounce the names wrong. I suck very hard at it. I am terrible at pronouncing names. So please forgive me. If you want to, please feel free to castrate me in the comment section below. I am all happy for that from y'all. But Mikael Blomkvist is a prominent journalist and head of the Millennium Journalist Company. It is a stark contrast to his Daniel Craig's role in the James Bond series. Unlike Bond, here he is not like an action hero type, just more like a typical journalist who smokes and drinks and had just lost the libel case against a corrupt businessman. It shows that he is just a simple, normal human being and not just a super spy type. But to mention on an unrelated note, me and my pops are, in particular, fans of Craig's performance as Bond since we had first saw him in Casino Royale, and we loved him even more in Skyfall. Daniel Craig's performance as Bond is the reason I had gotten more into the James Bond series. So, yeah, Daniel Craig, cool guy. Thanks, man. Have a cookie. And as for Rooney Mara, she had also done a pretty damn good job as Lisbeth Salander, an intelligent computer hacker and rape survivor. What I find interesting about Lisbeth as a character is that she holds a deep resentment towards men, because they see her as nothing more than a simple object to look down upon, but she does no longer take any shit from them anymore, so if they try to force her onto them, she will find a way to make their lives more miserable than hers has ever been. You do not want to fuck with this woman. Like, when her old legal guardian suffers a stroke, and she has a new guardian, that being lawyer Nils Bjurman, he takes control of her finances and abuses his authority by extorting sexual favors from her and even violently rapes her at one point. But unbeknownst to him, he had secretly recorded the rape on a camera in her backpack, and so when she takes revenge on him by bounding him to the floor of his home, he places him under threat of releasing the video publicly, even rapes him with a metal dildo. I don't know what that thing was, but god damn. And goes so far as to tattoo the statement, "I am a rapist pig," onto his chest permanently, pretty much putting him under her control from then on. That is just fucking brilliant. And I myself say that as a man, I was deeply surprised when I first saw that. I was shocked, and yet I was like, it was just brilliant. I did not expect it. It shocked me. But as you could say, I am a bit of a feminist, but just to see a woman get back at the man like that was just brilliant like that. When you see the movie, you'll understand what I mean, what I'm talking about. And I say that because on an unrelated note, I am a huge fan of the character Sidney Prescott in the Scream movies. Maybe when I do a fan commentary on the first Scream movie, I will talk much more about that. But moving on. But when she begins to work with Mikael, she is surprised by the fact that he treats her as a partner, as a person, and a partner. And most of all, as a person. And so she does somewhat fall for him romantically as the film progresses. It certainly shows her that not every man is a complete monster, and that there are a rare few men who could treat her as a person. But also to bring up to all of you about me on a personal level, I have never been very fond about rape. It is a crime that very much angers me. More like pisses me off into a violent, explosive rage. Ever since I had first seen what rape looked like when I had seen the 2009 remake of The Last House on the Left, when I was 16 years old. And when I first saw that film in the cinema, and saw what a rape had actually looked like, it very much had filled me with a grip of violent rage, to the point where I had even began to see red. So yeah, for you all to know about me, rape, not a fan. I want you all to know that about me, on a personal level. Now let's not talk about that anymore before I get very pissed off, even more pissed off now. But to mention on a final note, Rooney Mara had previously worked with Venture a year before this film on The Social Network in a very minor role, which to mention was about the creation of the Facebook website. And to say as a side note, uh, I have also very much enjoyed The Social Network, even when I can admit that I absolutely hate Facebook and have never signed on to it and never will. So yeah, you might not want to post any messages to me on Facebook because I will never have an account on it for as long as I live, which I will very much explain to you honestly and clearly whenever and if I do a review on the social network itself, sometime in the future. And Christopher Plummer was brilliant in his more than minor role as Henrik Wenger, the current CEO of the family company and Wenger Industries and Harriet's granduncle. Plummer was barely to me, when I first saw the movie The Sound of Music when I was in music class in high school, he was barely recognizable to me when I saw him in it. He looked so young. And, of course, as we all know lately, that he had replaced Kevin Spacey in Ridley Scott's 2017 film All the Money in the World, when sexual allegations against Spacey had broke out. And to say, Plummer is a very amazing actor and has been for the past 60 years. Someone who will be long remembered even after he passes away, and someone I will happily respect as an actor. What I like about Plummer's Henrik is that he is possibly the only honest man in this wealthy family of anti-Semitic assholes, and Harriet's disappearance has been haunting him for 40 years, and so he has hired Mikhail to solve the disappearance, to at least get some form of an answer to the case, to figure out just what the hell happened that day when she disappeared, because in this movie, Henrik had just turned 80, and he is not getting any younger. But yes, Chris Plummer did a stellar job in this film, as he always has been doing throughout his entire career. As for Stellan Skarsgård, he was good as Martin Wenger, Henrik's replacement as CEO of Wenger Industries and Harriet's brother. I remember Skarsgård fondly well, having been introduced to him in the movie Deep Blue Sea, of which I rather enjoy. It's possibly the best shark movie since Jaws. I remember him in that Deep Blue Sea as the guy who got his arm bitten off by the super smart mega shark. As a young lad, that was a scene that I would never have forgotten for my entire life. That scene alone had scared the shit out of me. And he is also an outstanding actor as well. What makes it good about him being in this film is the fact that he is actually Swedish, really. So it is very fitting, given that the source book is from Sweden. And he was also in the original Norwegian film Insomnia. So the 2002 films Insomnia with Al Pacino and Robin Williams, it's actually an American remake of an original film from Norway. Now, for a big spoiler concerning the big twist in this film. So, if you have not seen the movie, please stop this video and go watch this movie. Okay? Let's go. It is eventually revealed that not only is Martin the killer, but also his late father Gottfried, who was the first killer in the 1940s through 60s, and was also an ex-Nazi who had used the Nazi Bible script to rape, torture, and kill young Jewish women all around Sweden, and he had also taught his son Martin how to perform the killings, and they both had resorted to sexually abusing Martin's sister Harriet. Gottfried had died from what was claimed to have been an accidental drowning in 65, but this was later revealed that he was killed by Harriet in self-defense when he had tried to rape her again. But for the next 40 years after Gottfried's drowning and Harriet's disappearance, Martin had continued to murder women, continuing his father's work, Sorcerer's Apprentice style. But unlike his father, who was a lousy drunk who'd leave his victims' bodies scattered around Sweden like trophies, Martin had instead gone for a more meticulous way, resorting to targeting women who would never be missed, such as immigrants, prostitutes, or even those whose families would be unable to spark an investigation. He'd take his victims to the basement of his home where he'd torture and kill them, and when finished, he'd take their bodies far out to sea and dump them into the water, leaving everyone none the wiser. And yet it is also revealed that even Martin doesn't know what had happened to Harriet. Even he had hoped that Mikkel would uncover what had happened that day when she disappeared. But after Martin is defeated and killed, Mikkel and Lisbeth finally speculate what had happened to Harriet. It turns out that Harriet is alive and has been living in London under a new identity as Anita, played by Jolie Richardson, whom I remember very fondly in the 1966 Disney film 101 Dalmatians and Event Horizon. But upon confronting her in London, Harriet reveals that her father Gottfried and brother Martin had been sexually assaulting her until one night in 65 she had fought off her father and drowned him in the water. But unfortunately, Martin had witnessed the ordeal and had replaced their father in sexually assaulting her. Come the next year in 66, with Martin at some faraway boarding school, Harriet is attending the Children's Day parade. And then suddenly she notices Martin across the street, and it is when she realizes that the nightmare will never end. And so she had ultimately decided to deliberately disappear without a trace with help from one of her family members, and had snuck off the island through the island's only one bridge in the trunk of a car, never to return for the next 40 years. And so yeah, I will say, the mystery in this film is very well done, with layers upon layers added to it, almost like a big puzzle that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I'd say that I really love the sort of murder mystery in this film, especially given that I am a huge fan of murder mysteries and the whodunit mystery genre. So it is really no wonder that I would have this film on my DVD shelf with many other similar films. Something that I really want to bring up is that there is a certain movie, just to mention, one thing I need to mention that I want to bring up is that there is a certain movie from the 1970s that extremely reminded me of this film when I had first discovered it, that being the 1971 neo-noir crime thriller film Clute, starring Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland, which was about a small-town detective from Pennsylvania named John Clute, who investigates the mysterious disappearance of a company executive, and his only clue is in the form of a New York call girl, or prostitute, Bree Daniels, and along the way end up discovering that the missing man and the call girl hold a link to a mysterious series of murders. Now, if there's just one minor thing that I have a problem with about this movie, it is mostly the very final ending. I know that it ends just like it does in the book, but still, after they finish their big case, Lisbeth formally helps Mikkel in taking down the corrupt businessman Wennerstrom, proving his corruption, and even Lisbeth anonymously taking all of Wennerstrom's money, leaving him dead broke. With that finished, Lisbeth then formally sees Mikkel as a genuine friend, and thinks about surprising him at his home with a gift, a motorcycle jacket, on Christmas. But when she arrives there, she finds him back with his lover and fellow worker, played by Robin Wright Penn, who was Sean Penn's former wife, ex-wife. And this ends up saddening her. She throws his gift in the garbage and rides off into the night on her motorcycle, all alone, just like she always was. Now again, I do understand that I can just relieve that problem just by simply reading the sequel books or even watching the sequels to the original Swedish Dragon Tattoo film, and I could. But again, the problem I have with it here is that from now on, we will never be seeing these two actors, Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, ever play these characters ever again. Because, despite its moderate box office run, MGM, one of the studios involved in the film's production, had reportedly posted a modest loss and had declared that they had expected the film to gross at least 10% more than it actually had. With the amount the film had made at the box office, there have been strong suggestions of there being sequels, with Fincher stating his desire to film 2 sequels back to back. Them being based on novels The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. But despite this, the 2 sequels had been delayed due to the first film's moderate box office success, along with difficulties in adapting the novels to script form, even with Seven writer Andrew Kevin Walker having been hired to rewrite Zalian's script. But in the end, Sony Pictures, who had distributed this film, had eventually decided to cancel the planned sequels, and thus David Fincher, Daniel Craig, and Rooney Mara, who were all contracted to return, will now no longer be returning, and now have moved on to other projects. And so, come November 2015, Sony Pictures had instead decided to just simply soft reboot the series with an adaptation of The Girl in the Spider's Web, a 2015 novel by David Lagerkrantz that was a continuation of the original Millennium Trilogy, after, to mention again, Stieg Larsson dying in 2004. Now, as of this video, The Girl in the Spider's Web soft reboot is currently slated for release on the 5th of October of 2018, to be directed by Fede Alvarez of Don't Breathe fame, and with Claire Foy cast as Lisbeth Salander. And now the first teaser trailer had been released to the public. You can find it on YouTube right now. But overall, I am willing to give the 2011 American remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo a rating of 7 stars out of 10 because it is a worthy American adaptation of a Swedish book, and it is definitely worth a check out if you are a huge David Fincher fan, even if you do still consider the original 2009 film to be the superior of the two films. So yeah, I'd recommend giving this film a check out. So thank you for watching, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this helped out again. So again, thanks for watching, and until then, I will see you all next time. Peace.